Alrighty, home stretch time. Here we go. It was some low-class brickmaker negotiating with McGilded anyway, was it not? I have no relation to the man. Look, all we done is break into the gaff the other night like we was told to. Right, wrong one. Like Mr. Graydon told you to do, you mean? That's it, yeah. Who else, eh? Silly me thought we was just popping over for a matter after all them years, but the rotter had a dodgy job for us. Hey, Ash. Let me stop you there, Mr. Skulkin. After all them years, you say? Do you mean to tell me that Mr. Graydon is an acquaintance of yours? We're the sociable kind of baddies, you know. Sure, let's say Graydon's in old China.
Excuse me.
Is there something wrong, Mr. Skulkin? Aye. No, the other one. What, who, me? When your brother was testifying just now, he said something that seemed to cause you to react. Oh, I was just one member in the old days, that's all. We used to have a right old laugh together way back when. Together with Mr. Graydon, you mean? I forgot my voice for him. Yeah, Ash, I mean. You look at him now in his fancy whistle and flute, you wouldn't have him in even. But when he was younger, he was from a poor part of town just like us. Is that so? Well, he was always a leery one. He had the brains. He had the savvy. Always coming up with smart ideas like what would never have gone through our heads. God blimey, ain't that the truth? Remember Milverton and Skulkin's milk run? What, that was a corker, eh? Save it until after the trial. Your reminiscing has no place in this courtroom. And neither does your fruit. Oi, the geezer asked us a question, didn't he? And we was answering. Yeah, we ain't done nothing wrong. Nevertheless, the court is not prepared to accompany you on your trip down memory lane. Counsel, can we turn our attention back to the testimony, please? I don't know. Could that sentimental story be relevant somehow? Yeah, add it. My lord. Yes, counsel. The brother's last sentimental statement could hold vital information regarding the case. Very well, counsel. I will permit the brothers to supplement their testimony with that detail. Briefly, I hasten to add. Say no more, a skulkin's never skulkin. Milverton and Skulkin's milk run. Milverton, huh?
Hold it!
I'm sure I'm going to regret asking, but what exactly was that? Some kind of business? Just a little scheme we had going back when we were youngsters. A bit of fun, really. Delivering fresh milk to the locals, that was what it was all about. That sounds alarmingly legitimate. There must be a catch. I suppose since we're here, I should ask them to elaborate, but on what? The name. That's the name! So this business was just a bit of fun, you say? And it was just yourselves and Mr. Graydon involved? Yeah, that's it. Milverton and Skulkin's milk run, was it? Yeah, that was it. And where did the Milverton part come from? Oh, right. I thought a clever cloaks like you would have worked that one out. Ladies, enough of this. How much longer are we expected to listen to this drivel? I don't. Let me guess. You don't accept anything these two witnesses are saying. Your last name isn't real. Why was it only a mention of the name Milverton that you decided to interject? Because well... You're one of the happiest of homes that one came from. Yeah, his old man was struggling for money so much his wife walked out on him. She took the name Graydon then, see? But Ash will always be Milverton to us. Milverton. So that used to be your surname, did it? Of course not! This is all bunko! I've been a Graydon since I was born! Do you really think you can rely on the testimony of these two thieves? You're a communications officer attached to the civil service. As such, your personal details will have been thoroughly checked at the time of your appointment. It would be a very simple matter indeed to subpoena those records, Mr. Graydon. Ah! Well, it would appear that Mr. and Mr. Skulkin's testimony has been reliable, for once. You were born Ashley Milverton, then? Is that correct? Very well, yes. So Ashley Graydon was once Ashley Milverton. That information could change things, and could turn out to be extremely important. Yeah, he's related to the brick guy. All of a sudden, we seem to be up to our necks in a serious matter of national security. Would explain a number of things, though, wouldn't it? The negotiation Ginny overheard in the omnibus 2 months ago and the break-in at Windibanks. But the trouble is, it wasn't Mr. Graydon in the omnibus with Mr. McGilded. That was Mr. Mason, the brickmaker who was horribly murdered. If only there was some link between the two men. We now know! It could be those two brothers. Present.
Objection.
If Mr. Ashley Milverton? Tell me, why did you try to hide your former name from the court? Because I haven't gone by that name for years. It means nothing to me. No, I don't think that's the real explanation at all. The truth is, you had a reason to hide that name. Explain yourself, please, counsel. I've here the notes from the omnibus case, my lord. And as we all know, the victim, the man who we now understand to have been negotiating with Mr. McGilded. Yes, Mr. Mason, the brickmaker. That's right, only Mason wasn't his surname at all. It was his given name. His full name was Mason Milverton. Milverton! Do you mean to say... Saints alive! Mr. Ashley Milverton, is it not the case that the brickmaker Mr. Mason Milverton was your father? I don't... As I believe I mentioned earlier, your family history will have been thoroughly checked when you join the civil service. And it really would take no time at all for the court to subpoena those records. Grr. The truth is that you have been illegally acquiring highly confidential government information and selling it to McGilded in collaboration with your father. Ah! The new facts and evidence unveiled by the cross-examination of this witness all come together to reveal the truth. The truth, you say? That you collaborated with your father, Mr. Mason Milverton, in illegal dealings with Magnus McGilded. By dint of this music box, you mean, counsel? Yes, stealing information being sent in secret government communications and selling it on to Mr. McGilded. Mr. Graydon concocted this elaborate scheme of using 2 music box discs to encode the information, as presumably the safety measure against the information falling into the wrong hands. And a very effective one. I shouldn't have given the scheme any credence whatsoever. But the deal with McGilded went sour, and the brickmaker met his end. Yes, but before he was arrested, McGilded managed to temporarily dispose of the stolen disc at the pawnbroker. Then, having learned of the situation, you appeared at Windibanks 2 days ago, and in an attempt to recover the 2 articles McGilded had pawned there. But that attempt failed. One of the discs was seized by the police, and the other you never found. So that same night, you enlisted the help of the Skulkin brothers and broke into the pawnbrokery. This time, determined to recover the second disc. Are you suggesting that the second disc was inside the music box? Hey! We never knew nothing about that. On the night that Windibank was killed, the intruder to the pawnbrokery touched one item, and one item alone, the music box. That's rather ingeniously demonstrated using the 2 prints from the security camera, indeed. So the question that naturally begs answering is this: why was only that one article disturbed? The answer is obvious. It contained a second disc, which the intruder was desperate to retrieve. Since if we were to fall into the hands of the police, it would be proof of high treason. Well, Mr. Grade, do you deny all this actually began on that fateful night, 2 months ago? I refuse to accept any of this nonsense. Sir, there appears to be blood seeping through the sleeve of your jacket. What? Ah! 2 nights ago, we know that 3 shots were fired at the scene of the crime in Windibank's pawnbrokery. One took the life of the pawnbroker himself. One struck the pouch around Mr. Sholm's waist. And the final bullet struck the calendar on the wall of the shop, having first pierced through the arm of one of the intruders. Mr. Graydon, that wound on your arm that you seem to be trying to hide, it's a bullet wound, isn't it? He's got you now, me old China. Time to call it quits and croak, I reckon. Don't acknowledge my presence there under any circumstances whatsoever. Those were my terms, remember, and I paid you handsomely to comply. Clearly, I was a fool to think I could trust some common backslum thieves. Fine, I admit it. I was there in Windibanks that night. I paid this pair 10 guineas to accompany me. And as you've noticed, I sustained an injury in the course of my adventures. But that is all. I admit to nothing more. Stealing government secrets, negotiating with Mr. McGilded. As God is my witness, I'm sure I recall nothing of the sort. He's not going to go down without a fight. Not until I can show hard evidence, I suppose. Nevertheless, the defense has now established a crucial fact. Which is? Well, we know that 1 bullet was fired from each of the 2 firearms we have in evidence. A bullet from the Skulkin brothers' gun hit the pouch around Mr. Sholm's waist, and the bullet from Mr. Windibank's gun clearly must have been the one that caught Graydon on the arm. Indeed it must. We can rule out the possibility that the man shot himself. And that leads us to only one conclusion. Mr. Windibank was shot by a 3rd gun, which can only have been fired by the 3rd intruder. Goodness! Ugh. That's right, Mr. Graydon. Ugh. The only person who could possibly have shot Mr. Windibank that night is you!
Hold it!
You little upstart! You made a grave mistake when you summoned me here. What? What's that supposed to mean? Yes, as you rightly say, I was there at the pawnbroker's. I did my best to hide the fact, naturally. I had no intention of ruining the distinguished career I built for myself at the communications station. But did the thought never cross your mind? Did you never consider the possibility? What do you mean? The possibility that if I was there at the scene, I may have witnessed a crucial moment. You see, this makes me a key witness in this case, and I have my hands firmly around the neck of your client. What? Are you suggesting? I saw it all. I saw the very moment that pickpocket girl pointed the gun at that poor defenseless pawnbroker. And shot him! No, you didn't. Order! Order! Well, it would appear we are finally entering the last act of this theatrical trial. Mr. Graydon. Yes. I trust you're fully aware of the implications here. If it is shown that your claim is false, you will have incriminated yourself as the killer. Oh, I understand fully. Then I must ask you to give your formal testimony once more. This will explain to the court precisely what you saw at the moment the defendant allegedly shot the victim. Nothing would give me greater pleasure. While these ruffians were jostling with the broker, I was still near the entrance to the shop. When Windibank threw Nash over the counter, I felt a sharp pain in my arm. I pursued the man, but he shut himself in the storeroom. I could see him through the peephole in that door, though. The accused in a black coat shot the man in the back as he was trying to flee to safety. I saw the blood spatter all over that wretched girl. Then she tossed the gun out of the peephole, so I picked it up and made my escape. That doesn't make sense. You claim, sir, under oath, to have clearly seen the defendant pulling the trigger. You are lying out of your ass, sir. It wasn't my intention to testify in this way. But neither is it my intention to be found guilty of a murder I didn't commit. So you see, my hand has been forced. I tell the truth now as an act of self-preservation. No, you're lying out of your ass to get yourself out of it. Until now, the prosecution was completely unaware of these details. Yeah, well, sorry about that. Having shot me in the arm, the pawnbroker was then shot in the back by the accused. That's not true. He only had one frigging bullet. You say the blood spattered over the accused coat. Are you sure on that point? Oh yes, quite sure. All over the black coat that the pickpocket girl was wearing at the time. Oh boy, that's not good. Except that's not his blood. Such an investigation is entirely possible, my lord. Only very recently, a German scientist has developed a technique to identify human blood. So here's to true science, not some amateurish detective's dubious foray in the world of chemistry. There's nothing dubious about Hurley's work, all his ideas are sound. Ideas are no use to us here. In science, as in law, theories must be proven before they stand. In Germany, the technique has already been employed in the courtroom as a basis of evidence. Scotland Yard has a small quantity of the chemical reagent used. With your lordship's permission, we could shatter all the vestiges of doubt within minutes. This doesn't look good, Bruno. Why not? Well, we know, don't we, that there's blood all over Ginny's coat. If they test it with their chemicals... Oh, help, you're right. I was forgetting what happened yesterday. Don't move, Ginny. I'm gonna shoot. That's frigging Milverton's blood, but that's not gonna matter to them. My lord, the defense objects to this test proposed by the prosecution. Overruled. We're in deep shit now. Make it so at once. With pleasure, my lord. And while we await the results, the defense may proceed with a cross-examination. Once they find that blood on the overcoat, Gina will be... Counsel! Yes, my lord. Your cross-examination. Of course, my lord. This cross-examination doesn't go well. If I don't manage to uncover some decisive evidence, I have a very bad feeling about the outcome of this trial. Blah, blah, blah. 3, 4, 5.
Hold it!
Did I hear you correctly? She threw the gun out of the room. Where exactly? In the direction of the storeroom door, to where I was watching. I quickly retreated, and then the girl dropped the gun through the peephole onto the floor on my side of the door. That's not true. Oh, I couldn't tell you. Perhaps she was hoping to distance herself from the murder weapon. Without thinking, I went and picked it up. I suppose I was worried about just leaving it there, in case any more tragedies took place. So it was you, in fact, who took the third gun from the scene of the crime. It was yours, truly. I left the clear up to my lackeys and left. Clear up? We made a bit of a mess around the counter, so Mr. Whistle and Flute here told us to tidy up. He thinks I'm bloomin' mum he's a bloomin' mum sometimes. I was paying you enough, by God. Tell me, Mr. Graydon, when you left the pawnbrokery that night, was it by any chance with the second disc in your jacket pocket? You're like a bullet to Gale.
Alright.
What are you doing?
Excuse me.
Gentlemen! Something wrong, Sunshine. That should be my line. You do realize you were just violently shaking Mr. Skulkin? Blimey! This dude's a bit of an hooligan, ain't he? What was going on just now? You saw me grab me whistle. What in the blazes, he said, did you mention the third gun when we got you down at the station? And why didn't you? 'Cause we didn't know nothing about it, or that flaming peephole in the door. Sorry about that. I can be prone to losing my rags sometimes. Not yet, are you? God blimey, see the way he's looking at me? I'm telling you, this D gives me the willies. That was strange. The inspector doesn't normally get quite as worked up, but... something's up. That wasn't like Gregsy at all. He's normally all sweetness and light, no matter what I say to him. Yeah, well, to you. Well, anyway, that was definitely out of character. What's your feeling, Runo? As much as I hate to admit it, I don't see any obvious holes in this testimony at the moment. Alrighty. We know that Gina didn't shoot Mr. Windibank, so what's going on? All I know is it's very unfair. Why should some German scientist's test be acceptable when mine and Hurley's wasn't? Detectives can use test tubes, you know. Never mind that, I have to find a really stark inconsistency of the testimony somewhere. Alright. You gotta press all of this. Ringo and Nash were scouring the counter when he suddenly appeared and flew at him. He already had the revolver in his hand. Fortunately, I wasn't too close. I've never been so scared in all me life. Yeah, we are just your regular mild-mannered burglars. That's all. We don't like violence. Says the pair who carry a gun. What do you mean when you say you were near the entrance to the shop? I was in the doorway, running my eyes over the show of forfeited items. Alrighty. Nash in the first place, then Ringo joined in, making it 2 against 1, so I assumed they could handle the situation. But I was wrong. I was trying to help me little bruv. The old geezer chucked me over the blooming counter. So I pulled me gun out on that fella, and that soon made him scupper. The pair of you setting upon the poor defenseless pawnbroker together. Shame on you! Sorry, Gov. Alright, I'll be right back. Yeah. No more surprises. I didn't imagine it would still be bleeding 2 days later. Well now, I don't imagine he even noticed. I was there, to be honest. Perhaps the gun went off accidentally. Anyway, didn't quite strike home. When I pulled me gun on him, he tried to shove me out of the way. I scuppered through that back there. At North Point, what did you do? Unsurprisingly, the store and door's a solid job. They just stack wood. There's a small opening, and it's about head height that makes you see what's in there from the inside. Hang on there, I don't remember that being there. There's nothing there yesterday. I threw it myself that night. Where did it come from? What about your burgling brothers? Did you see what went on through the peephole as well? No, likely, Gov. Didn't see nothing of the sort, Gov. I doubt these 2 buffoons were even aware of the peephole's existence. So they were there, but they didn't see the killing of Mr. Windibank. Inside the storeroom, I could see the broker and that young girl standing there. Alright, neither of them noticed I was looking. The girl raised her gun and pointed it straight at the man. Now she does. was Mr. Windibank's gun. And we clearly established, Mr. Drayden, that bullet was fired at you. Ah, but no, it wasn't the broker's gun, that was the pickpocket. Girl had when I saw her. Yes, the bullet from Windibank's gun grazed my arm. And yes, Skulkin's gun grounded the detective. But this was another gun entirely. A third gun. That's bullshit. She didn't have a gun. No other gun was found at the scene. Calm yourself, Counsel. You're lying out of your asshole. It doesn't even dignify a response.
Hold it!
All over her? Yes, through the peephole I saw it clearly. Blah, blah, blah. It is sullied with blood, that's for sure, but it's not... doesn't belong to Mr. Windibank. Annoying. If they'd only accept Hurley's chemical analysis, we could prove it. But they won't, so unfortunately we can't use it as evidence to support our case. Bother. My lord! Requesting your lordship's permission to interrupt the cross-examination. Here we go. Explain yourself. Are the result of the test that was ordered earlier, my lord. Ah, the blood of the accused overcoat. Thank you, officer. Cross-examination is temporarily suspended. I presume you have no objection, counsel. No, my lord. Well, there you have it. The report, please, Inspector. Yes, sir. Traces of human blood were found on the overcoat of the defendant, Miss Gina Lestrade. From the extent of the stains, it would appear that they were the result of spattering followed a gunshot wound. End of report. Goodness me! No, they're not. What did I tell you?
Objection!
No, the blood on that coat is not Mr. Windibank's. What on earth makes you say that, counsel? The coat originally belonged to Magnus McGilded. Just before his coat was deposited at Windibank's, Mr. McGilded had fatally stabbed Mr. Mason Milverton. So the blood on that overcoat is the blood on the brickmaker from the omnibus case.
Objection!
Well, the dead cannot speak. Isn't that right, my Nipponese friend? Sorry? Two months ago in this very courtroom, did you not argue fervently for his innocence? Yeah, we did, and we found out that he was a dirty, rotten liar. Your conduct shatters any shred of respect you may have earned for yourself in this country. That was... yeah, blah, blah. How to determine whether the blood on that coat is 2 months old or not? Even a stereoscope couldn't answer that one. It can't be done. But... we use Mr. Sholmes' specially formulated chemicals. Sholmes is a detective, not a chemist. Would you put such faith in a chemical formula devised by me, for example, when I'm a communications officer? I I held up piroshki to starving boy and he ran away crying. Sherlock Holmes is barely more than a figment of the public's imagination. His name carries no weight in this courtroom. No weight at all. How could you say that? Victory is sweet indeed. This proves my testimony is the whole truth from start to finish. How do you arrive at such a conclusion, sir? As the witness said, the accused coast was splattered with the blood of the victim. The only way Mr. Braden could possibly have known that fact is if he saw it happen. In other words, his testimony is solid, and the conclusion is singular. No, it's not. He's lying out of his asshole. Ah! My lord! Been a long battle, this one. Mr. Foreman. Ready, men. All for one now. Sir!
Guilty.
Guilty.
Guilty. Guilty.
Guilty.
Guilty.
Great. Well, it would appear that the ladies and gentlemen of the jury have reached a unanimous verdict. The defense has consistently failed to unpick this witness's testimony. Here's to any attempt you may make at unpicking the jurors' decisions being equally successful. Ah! I don't believe it. After I've come so far, how is it all unraveling on me so fast? We got a dirty cop here. I wonder if this is what they were talking about. How very distressing to be held in such low esteem. Would you agree, Mr. Naruto? Officer? You deliver the report now. That will be all, thank you. It occurs to me with some regularity, Mr. Naruto, that scientific truths are determined not by science, but by none other than the human mind. I know that voice. Am I going mad? Ah! Mr. Holmes! Mr. Sholmes! What is the meaning of this? Order! What business do you have here, detective? The last I heard, you were recuperating in hospital. As well I should be, had I not been set upon an errand. What errand? Hurley, it's really you! You've awoken at last. Yes, good day, Iris. I appear to be rather late to rise. My apologies. Now, my lord, if you will humor me. In what manner, sir? I have something of great importance I wish to give to the young lawyer over there. I need no more than 5 minutes. Would you be so kind as to spare us the time? What do you say to this, Lord Van Zeeks? This trial has taken many hours of the court's time, having spent so long already. Exactly, having spent so long already, we don't want to go wasting any more precious time. Oh, shut it, Gregson. You're helping him lie. As I was saying, having spent so long already, it would seem churlish to deny the defense a mere 5 minutes. Hey! You have 5 minutes. My dear fellow, I apologize for my tardy arrival. Alright, I'm all wrong. Sorry, I've only just managed to summon the strength of Stand-Man. I asked the judge for 5 minutes. But I fear maybe that even that may prove too much for me. Pray forgive me should I pass out. Let's make this discussion as short as possible. Apparently this place is full of idiots. None of them can see how wonderful your chemical blood analysis is. Ah well, that concoction of mine was really just a bit of spot to help me with my investigations. I never took the trouble to refine it for appraisal by the scientific community, an oversight on my part. Right. Modesty? Surely not. But enough of that. I'm here to give you this, my dear fellow. Leaving present from Miss Susato. If possible matters were to be settled without me giving you this. Those were instructions that she asked me to do to her this favor. Miss Susato foresaw today's events, I believe. She knew that the culprit would attempt to escape justice by means both devious and underhand, and that you, Mr. Naruhodo, fighting fairly as you want to do, would find yourself in considerable peril. At the very moment of crisis, you would be given this small parcel. Those were the dear lady's instructions. The leaving present. It's the cat flap maker. What is that? Cat Flap-O-Mat. Alrighty. Susato muttered the following words before she left. I'm a failure. I don't deserve to be a judicial assistant. What? Didn't she say something like that? You really are the best judicial assistant in the world. Well, that's extremely flattering. But I'm sorry to say that I've been a complete failure. Whatever she did she mean by that, Mr. Schultz? That night, when you left Windbanks in pursuit of thieves, Miss Susato made use of this contraption for a certain purpose. That is your answer, dear fellow. She did it so we could see what was going on. We're out of time already. Alrighty. Time to figure it out. I need no thanks, Detective. After all, the die is cast. Alia eacta est. Is it really? The jurors are unanimous in their leanings. No doubt my learned friend will consider summation examination. But any attempt to alter the verdict now would be utterly futile. I wonder. Mr. Naruhodo! Yes. rest is down to you, dear fellow. What is your plan? We'll figure that out next episode.